Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chapter 12, Communication Climate. Previously, we've been discussing what communication climate is, as well as warm, positive, confirming communication climates where people feel valued, and cold, negative, disconfirming climates where people feel negative, where people feel like they are not valued. So, how do we get to those points? For the cold communication climate, these are the things, defense provoking behaviors lead us to disconfirming negative communication climates, and supportive behaviors lead us to confirming supportive, warm, positive communication climates. And so by changing small little word choices, this is not changing the content or changing what we are talking about. Everything that is human is mentionable, and everything that is mentionable is manageable. So we want to be able to change our words from evaluating, which is a defense-provoking behavior, into description, from control into problem orientation, from a strategic manipulation into a spontaneous communication, from neutral to empathetic, from superior to equal communication, from certain to provisional. Let's dive right on in. We start with evaluation and description. Evaluation is defense provoking, description is not. The reason why evaluation is defense provoking is because it judges the other person. It evaluates them, judges what the person is feeling rather than describing the speaker's thoughts, feelings, and wants. So we should engage, instead of evaluation, you did this, you were like this, you you were very inconsiderate. Instead of that evaluation, you describe the situation, use descriptive statements, make documented observations that are specific and concrete. So, what about their behavior was inconsiderate? I I didn't appreciate that we both decided to meet at 2 o'clock, and I showed up at 2. You showed up at 2:30. I don't appreciate that. I didn't appreciate that. By focusing on my description of the events, then that is communicating the same thing, but it is communicating in a way that I still value you, but I feel hurt because of this. Focus on the behavior that can be changed versus the personal characteristic, inconsiderate, which cannot. Use I language instead of you language. I notice, I feel, I think, instead of you were this, you were that. Next, we move into controlling communication. Controlling communication is disconfirming because it is trying to control the situation, trying to control what you will do, instead of problem oriented, which is focusing on a problem that we can both solve. Controlling communication occurs when a sender seems to be imposing a solution on the receiver with little regard to the receiver's needs or interests. So, this a lot of times happens in organizations where it is we are making this there is this problem, we are implementing this solution, and that is that. Usually that is fine because there are hierarchical structures that allow for that controlling communication, and frankly, it'd be pretty insane if we were not able to do that. If things would move a lot slower if that was the case. If we were only engaging in problem-oriented communication, especially in business organizations. But in relationships, you need to clean the dishes. You're going to clean the dishes every week. By doing that, it's showing little regard for the other person, and as a result, it's basically, in essence, saying, I know what's best for you, and if you do as I say, we'll get along. It can take the form of any object, channel, or nonverbal communication to strive to control the communication situation. Even standing and towering over someone can act as controlling communication. Instead, we have problem oriented, is what we should do, which shows value for the other person because it focuses on finding a solution that satisfies both of our needs and those of those of others involved. Making decisions with people rather than for people. Making decisions with people communicates value because their input is included, whereas controlling communication, their opinion is not warranted or wanted or necessary because I know what's best. Next, we jump into strategy versus spontaneity. Strategy is defense-arousing messages in which speakers hide their ulterior motives and therefore seem as dishonest and manipulative, or seen as dishonesty and manipulation. So, this is very much trying to trick people. And once there is this perspective, it's very hard to gain back that trust. So, how do people seem dishonest? Seem like they are being manipulative? Well, there are ways like, you know, trying to use reverse psychology or trying to manipulate in some way, in other words. We want to avoid situations like that. The best way to do this is by not taking so much control of the situation, allowing for a dialogue to happen. This means being honest with others rather than manipulating them. That we can do the same job, we can communicate the same thing, and we can communicate the same wants and end up with the same result with spontaneous communication instead of strategic communication, and still maintain preserve a communication climate that is confirming. Next, we talk to neutrality. We want to be more neutral than. Sorry. Neutrality communicates a lack of value. Empathy communicates more value. Neutrality is behavior that arouses defensiveness due to indifference or lack of caring. For example, if someone says, you know what, oh man, I'm so sad that I broke up with my girlfriend, then a neutral response may be something like, yeah, well, plenty of fish in the sea. In so doing, it's not showing, it is creating that defensiveness. A good example of this is that if someone is worried about their physical health, you know, I can't, you know, I can't do this job because I have this pain in my hand. I cannot do it. And then I say, well, that's the job. That can create a lot of defensiveness because it communicates a lack of value for the person. Whereas empathy shows an understanding of their feelings and supporting them, showing value for them. Next, we talk about superiority versus equality. Superiority is conveyed by patronizing messages that suggest that I'm better than you. Patting someone on the head is communicating superiority, saying, you know what, joking. I tend to do this a lot, unfortunately, where, I'll say things like, oh, the directions were messed up again. And as a result, I'm communicating that I am superior in, directions in driving when someone has a presented self that they are a good driver, then that can create a lot of defensiveness. Instead, let's say someone misses the turn. Then saying something superiorly, I'd say, oh, yeah, oh man, missed the turn again. Just like that, it is communicating superiority over the other person. Whereas equality, something like, oh yeah, I probably would have missed that too. The speakers can achieve equality by communicating that although they have greater talent in certain areas, they see others as having just as much worth as themselves. So even when I know for a fact that I'm a better driver than some people, that that there are still some ways that I am deficient. I am not as good. I am a public speaking professor, so as a result, I can reasonably assume that I know more about communication. That being said, if I interacted in that way with people from other scholarships, then that would be very superior to others, and other people would not, and that would create a lot of defensiveness. Instead, by engaging in equality, and this isn't a like act, but I truly believe that many people have much better perspectives that I do about many different things. I am horrible at cars. I don't know a thing about them. I'm not very good technologically either. So we all have areas of superiority and inferiority, so we should treat everyone as equals. Not just to create a confirming communication climate, but also because it's the right thing to do. Next, we have certainty versus provisionalism, and this is the last of these supportive communication climate strategies. Certainty communicates a lack of value for the other person because the individuals who insist that they are right project the defense arousing behavior of certainty, so I'm insisting that I'm right. That creates defensiveness because it is saying that outside of whatever you think, I'm right. Using terms like can't, never, always, must, or have to communicate certainty. That will never work. I always do this. I must be the leader in this situation. By doing that, it is creating certainty, and there is no opportunity for negotiation of this meaning, communicating a lack of value for your meaning of it, and as a result, creating defensiveness. Whereas provisionalism is people may have strong opinions, but are willing to acknowledge that they don't have a corner on the truth, and will change their stand if another position seems more reasonable. Using terms like perhaps, maybe, possibly, might, or could will allow for a more supportive climate. Let's talk about politics. Are you certain about your beliefs, or do you communicate provisionalism? There are ways that we can be wrong. And as a result, we should strive for more provisional communication than certain communication. I'm not so sure about the actual statistics, but from what I have read, this is what I believe. And just like that, that allows for multiple perspectives. And even though I know I'm right, by communicating in that way, it's communicating value for other beliefs because I do not have a corner on the truth, which I don't. So, these are the defensive and supportive communication behaviors. Next, we are going to be talking about ways to create supportive communication climates beyond these behaviors.